When I first heard about Arcane on Netflix, I was not interested. I was seeing so many friends and people I admire rave about this show, say how amazing the animation is, and that always piqued my interest. But I knew it was a League of Legends show, and I do not like League of Legends for a number of reasons. One, I didn't vibe with the gameplay itself when I did try to play it, and also my experiences that were incredibly negative. One of the most toxic environments I've ever been involved in as a new player. And I do hold that against League. But I was talking to my friend and I decided to take the plunge. I was gonna watch this series, I was gonna give it a fair shot and, you know, see how it went. And you know what? I was impressed. I was very impressed by what I saw here. And I mean, we could talk about that from an animation perspective. We could talk about that from a storytelling perspective. We can just talk about, I think one of the biggest things is the accomplishment of a 9-episode, 40-minute long each episode series of having such consistent quality is, for one thing, just insane. But we'll get into animation quality in a bit. I have a lot I want to say about that, but we'll get into that in a bit. First off, I want to just talk about the story. Now, I know next to nothing about League of Legends story. My only positive engagements with League of Legends prior to this was that I really liked the KDA Pop Stars video. I thought that was really well done. It was really beautifully animated. It was a catchy song. It could just all fit. I like that specific thing. Everything else in League of Legends though, I have basically no idea. But even going in not knowing anything about the lore, about any of the characters that I was seeing, I really got pulled into the story. I have a few genuine criticisms of the show, nothing that took away from my overall enjoyment of it, and nothing that didn't make me really buy into these characters and really buy into this world. I feel like in a few ways it leans on a few cliches, like a combination of a bunch of kind of cliche stories. I don't want to spoil them, so I won't really get into that, but the one thing I did admire about the story, even when it did have kind of cliche moments, is it did the most important thing, and that's not pull its punches. I think one of the most frustrating moments in a story is when you have a character go through something, go through some sort of ordeal, or go through make some kind of mistake, and for the consequences of that mistake to not be as bad as was set up. And that doesn't happen here. This show does not pull its punches. And that's so important. Like, when we talk about the success of things like Breaking Bad, Game of Thrones, all these kinds of newer series that shock people in so many ways, I think one of the most important aspects of those is that those shows don't pull their punches. Berserk, another one of the greatest series of all time, does not pull its punches at all, ever in the manga. And that's crucial. That is so crucial because so often there's always a kind of a deus ex machina to get a character out of a situation that just doesn't feel earned. And that doesn't really happen in this show. There's nothing that breaks your immersion into this world. For an animated show, it also does focus a lot on class warfare, poverty, politics, drug usage, all these kind of more taboo topics. So while I think the basis of some of the stories feel very kind of cliche, they are able to build on top of that. They're able to move forward, not pull their punches, and bring it to places that other series don't really go with their stories. And there is a lot of moral ambiguity to our characters. There's a couple who are more clear-cut heroes, but all of our characters have kind of gray areas to them, or are portrayed in a more sympathetic light if you're looking at it as just a casual viewer and not really thinking about the horrible actions that they're taking, like a character like Silco. Arcane does a great job of also just making you feel immersed into this town. It centers around this big technological city of Piltover and the clash division between Piltover's main kind of technological and business hub, and then the lower end of town, kind of like, you know, 1800s London in a lot of ways. And in this kind of extreme class division, there are different cultures and different communities that pop up, and different factions that, you know, all would just feel naturally building off of the different kinds of ways that people choose to survive in this world. It's difficult to talk about the story in this show because I don't really want to dig into a lot of these characters. I will say one of my favorites was Victor. There's also characters like Vander, Mel, Silco, all these really well-crafted characters that I really grabbed onto. If I got into a spoiler discussion, there's a whole lot of things I have to say about characters like Jinx or Jace, but that's not what this video is going to be about. Maybe if you really like this video and we, you know, get a whole bunch of subscribers or likes, you know, you show me you like it, maybe we'll do a spoiler-filled video talking about these kind of characters. But No promises on that, we'll have to see. You give me a like, I give you a video. It's how it works, you see? I'm sorry. Okay, let's move on to animation, because the animation is really what blew my mind the most about this series. I like the story a really good amount, but the animation that ties it together made it breathtaking and so visually just expressive. When I looked up Studio Fortiche, which I'm not sure if that's the correct way to pronounce it, it's French, I'm not good at French, but when I looked up this studio, I thought they would have a few different other, major projects they would have worked on. I'm sure that they worked on previous League of Legends stuff, but I thought they would have been their own established studio. But they're not. Now that's not to say that they haven't made some incredible things. They actually are the people who animated the Popstar KDA video that I previously liked. The only other thing from League of Legends that I liked, they also made. So the studio overall has a few projects. They've done some music videos for League of Legends, they've done some cinematics, they also did a Gorillaz music video. So after looking at that, they had no real major big release outside of these more smaller projects, right? So next thing my mind went to was, okay, maybe the directors have worked on something bigger. So I looked both of them up, and no, not really. One of the directors worked on a 12-episode mini-series of Rocket and Groot, which was a Marvel series done for Disney back in 2017. But that was a mini-series, it was a short series, it wasn't Arcane. Arcane is 9 episodes, each episode about 40 minutes long. That's a lot of show. If you're talking about a normal show is like 20 minutes long, so that would be like an 18-episode show with this quality of animation that you've been seeing. This is insane. I have a video where I talked about Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse, and I absolutely love that movie, and I still think it's one of the best examples of modern animation, the biggest leap forwards in Western animation, and how Western animation has been evolving over the past time. And I think this is another one of those steps. What always really amazed me about the Popstars video was this blending of 3D models with 2D animation. It really makes everything pop out of the screen, and Arcane does this over and over again. The 3D models and the textures they're using on this are just beautiful. The lighting effects are insane. There are some really well-crafted, well-directed moments of just intense emotion told through editing, told through animation. Going back and looking at the series after seeing how many music videos the studio did, you can really see that in their work. There are so many sequences in this show set to music that just really pop out in different ways. And the show isn't afraid to use different animation styles in different ways. Not that they're changing up their animation style entirely, but they're changing out their expression of this animation. So for a studio whose first major project is this? Like, I know League of Legends makes a ton of money off of being League of Legends, and I know Netflix has a crazy budget, but Netflix animated shows don't generally look like this. Klaus was probably the last really amazing animated show, which was a movie, but the last really amazingly animated thing I saw on Netflix. Netflix has a lot of really good series, but stuff that it produces itself isn't really like groundbreaking. Though maybe it's more accurate to call Netflix more of a distributor in this case. The platform just doesn't really have this high quality original content coming out. Great Pretender last year was a really great release that looked visually stunning, but that's Wit Studios, and it was a Wit Studios production. This is just, Netflix just had distribution rights for it. It's not like they were key in producing that. But if you look at the quality in a show like Arcane next to another huge, adult animated 40-minute long show that came out this year, and Invincible. I love Invincible. I've loved Invincible long before the series came out. I have almost all the comics myself. But if you look at the animation for that series, it looks like a cheap 90s show compared to this. Not to say that Invincible looks horrible, it just looks so much weaker compared to a similar kind of show. And that's a show that had big names behind it, that was actually produced by Amazon itself, that had huge people behind that project, right? You had J.K. Simmons in Invincible. It's by the guy who did The Walking Dead. Like, there's huge names, big mainstream names on that. When you compare that to a thing like League of Legends, and League of Legends is big for gamers, big for people who are in that community, but if you're talking about mainstream knowledge, the average person doesn't know much about League of Legends or MOBAs. They'll just look at you weirdly. My point of this is not to deride Invincible in any sort of way, because I love Invincible. It was a really good show. But really, it's just to look at what this studio did and just be in awe of it. This isn't Sony Animation, this isn't Disney, this isn't DreamWorks. This is a studio that basically just did music videos and now puts out one of the best animated shows I've seen in a long time. As a series, I don't know if I've ever seen a series with this constant quality. The literal electricity in this show gives me goosebumps. There is so many great blending moments of 3D and 2D that just, I can't describe how exciting this is. The blending of 2D and 3D animation is really one of the most exciting things that, you know, we've been witnessing over the past few years. And you saw it with Into the Spider-Verse, you saw it with Demon Slayer going the other way, being a predominantly 2D focused show, having 3D elements in it. But you're seeing it more and more, and it's really exciting to me because it's a different form of changing up animation, of utilizing, you know, the movement and ability you get from a 3D generated show, the more liberty you get than hand drawing things, but also having hand drawn animation still involved to give that visceral quality that you can't get generated just from a computer. Now with today's technology at least. It's thrilling. It's absolutely thrilling. And even if I don't like League of Legends, even if I had no prior really reason to get into this show, I was enthralled by it. I'm still thrilled by it. This is going to be AMV content for years and years. Like, there is so many amazing cinematic moments in this show. If you love animation in any kind of sense, if you consider yourself someone who just is an animation enjoyer, anime, western, it doesn't matter. If you like the medium of animation, watch this show. You have to watch this show because it symbolizes something really exciting occurring in animation, a new step forward in animation. I honestly really wonder what the budget for this show was. Like, how were they able to do? I'm enthralled. I'm enthralled. I love this show. It's really rewarding to see the people who made the only other thing that I loved from League of Legends, the KDA video, and just give them a whole budget, let them animate an entire show, and they turn this out, and it's just like, yes, yeah, that makes sense. I've heard some people talk about, you know, League of Legends having great animation, you know, and I remember back in the day with World of Warcraft releases, Blizzard had in some insane animation. Those aren't always done in-house, right? And this studio didn't handle all of the League of Legends cinematics. Most of the cinematics you see are not done by this studio. They only did a couple, but each one that they've touched have been insane, and I can't wait to see what they do in the future. I can't wait to see what these directors do in the future, or other people in this cast, because they knocked it out of the park. And I think, you know, I'm excited to see where this goes, where this style goes, and, you know, how it's developed on going forward. There's a whole lot more I could say. I have spoiler thoughts I could really get into, but this is not the time for that. Again, if you want to see a spoiler discussion, leave a like, leave a comment, let me know. I'm more than happy to get into that if you're interested, though. I also have a few other series that I'm really excited to talk about, and there's the new season of anime that's finishing up pretty soon that I gotta discuss. There's so much. I have other projects I'm working on. There's so much things I'm trying to do here, and I'm just really excited. I'm really excited for animation in the past couple years. Ever since Spider-Verse came out, I've been just, I mean, hell, even before that with Lego Movie, I'm just, it's exciting. It's a great time. But thank you very much for listening to me rant and rave and go off on all this kind of nonsense. I really appreciate it. And, you know, like this video if you like it, leave a comment if you want to have other thoughts that you want to add in, and subscribe if you want to see more videos similar to this, because I've got plenty coming up here. I want you to have a great day. I want you to have a great night. I want you to have whatever it is you're having, and stay rad.